Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who is still in quarantine down in his basement. You'll have to forgive the uneven lighting, and you might be counting, According to the Dig Dug government, I should be out of quarantine. It's been more than 5 days. But also thanks to the government, I got a test. They gave us some free tests, and this is what came up this morning, so I am decisively not out of quarantine. Listen to science, not to hope. So, that's why I'm down here in the basement in front of a big poster of Bob Dylan, which I'll get to soon enough, and next to a slightly smaller poster of Neil Young, which I'll also get to discuss Big Thief's album, New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You. Never has a chasm between terrible title and great album ever been so clear. A truly horrendous title for a really great album. Now, I've already reviewed each sort of lead member of Big Thief individually. I reviewed Adrianne Lenker, where I talked about her, what I called her quiet power. She broke my spirit with how good of a lyricist she was. She had this one line about wanting to sleep in the car while her lover is driving, and the vulnerability that's implied in that, and the sort of real-life poeticism and the situation that I've been in so many times in my life of being unable to sleep in a car because I have trouble trusting people because of experiences I had as a child. Just like all this pain and truth and love and vulnerability. She is so much quiet, wonderful, observational, poetic power in her lyrics. That album's songs blew me away. To a lesser extent, I liked Buck Meek's solo album, the things I didn't like about it were the things that I saw in myself. A sort of NPR country hipster from Brooklyn. To a certain extent, you hate when you see yourself in other people, and his desire to take the forms of country music and resuscitate some of the good things and leave out some of the bad things made for a very good album, but one which, in another world, I might have made, which sort of made me dislike it at first. But what makes this album so great, I'm not going to say the one thing, there's a lot of things that make this album great, is that it's produced not by either of these two giant songwriters, but by the drummer. The fact it's produced by the drummer, I think, is part of what gives this album its strength. First of all, he produces himself very well, very restrained, very cool. There's not that much drums in this album, but every time there's drums, they are great. But he just has a way to produce this album and to put it together where it really has this great feeling, this great combination between sort of like sitting around a campfire and sort of like grooving at a nice dinner party. Kind of like the combination between those things. But the priority of this album, and I am going to get a little bit more into its production, but the priority certainly are the lyrics. And I'm going to make an odd comparison here. I've been stuck down here in the basement, okay? I've been stuck down here for a week. I've been catching up on Rick and Morty seasons 4 and 5. Just stay with me, okay? Because I've been listening to this album and watching Rick and Morty, my brain forms these connections. Now, these are my connections. I don't know if Big Thief watches Rick and Morty. I can't say. But I can tell you that this image has really helped me, and it's going to sound weird, it's helped me to better understand the strength of Adrianne Lenker's songs on this album. You see, there's a character in Rick and Morty named Jessica, who is the crush of Morty. And in season 5, episode 1, she gets frozen, and her consciousness stays awake while her body is asleep for centuries and centuries. And in the time of the show, it only takes 15 minutes. But when she comes out of it, she has this amazing perspective. Here's some quotes from her. It's supposed to be a silly, stupid show about a burping pickle, but it's really a very smart show. At first it was madness, then enlightenment, then madness again. I had nothing but time, but still no answer. Time without purpose is a prison. I have glimpsed into the mind of eternity, and perhaps of God, and found only silence. That's the perspective that I see Adrianne Lenker here, as somebody who has been trapped with her consciousness alive for centuries. as Jessica refers to herself, I think we can call Adrianne Lenker on this album something of a time god. Here's the ending of that episode where she walks off. There's going to be a little swear word in here, but I don't think they'll flag it. Here we go.
But there will be more for both of us. Goodbye, Morty.
Hey, how's it going?
Fuck off, I'm a time god.
So that's goofy. But when I hear Adrianne Lenker sing on this album, so many times I just had her say, F off, I'm a time god. Now it's not just that she has these observations about time, it's the way she weaves them into observations about nature, which she then weaves into her observations about society, and then which she weaves into her observations about herself. She's talking about herself as someone who's just broken up with a lover, apparently who she loved very much, someone who's contemplating her childhood, where apparently she grew up in some kind of weird cult-like situation, and then tying it into these big natural themes. It is an impressive work of poetry all the way through, and it's the work of a time god. Now musically, a lot of what makes this album good is that it's fun. So when I talk about like these themes and all the severity that's happening here, this band is just having fun. And this is what I think is that drummer's production here. Like they include a lot of, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of stuff. The sound of a chair creaking while someone starts playing guitar. It feels very much like it's about the process of the album. Apparently they recorded in 4 different locations over COVID, and it has that great feeling of a band that's together, that's having fun, that's trying to make something great. In that way, it's not all that different from the Black Country New Road album that I reviewed 2 weeks ago, in that sense of it being like a band that's together, that's very focused on their process. Musically, it reminds me a lot of like the... Okay, so I'm saying when things remind me of things. I'm not saying it's an imitation. I'm saying it's a feel thing. And when Neil Young is at his best in his country mode, like the best songs off of Harvest or Harvest Moon or Old Ways, his country mode, there's a lightness and a folky country beauty to it. And that's how this album often feels. But clearly the biggest comparison I'd make is to Bob Dylan. This is the problem. I have a loyal viewer on a Patreon, Matthew Brown, and every time I mention Dylan or I say someone is the new Dylan, he'll jump on and basically say, watch out, that's a curse. And it is a curse to call someone the new Dylan. So what I propose is we change the definite article into an indefinite article. Let's stop talking about the next Dylan, and let's just start talking about a Dylan. Let's just say that if we have a musician who has folk without naivete or breathless wonder, someone who's messianic without being tyrannical, someone who takes themselves very seriously while also taking the piss at all chances, making fun of themselves and having a jokey attitude towards life. Let's just refer to that class of folk, rock, country singer with amazing poetic prowess as a Dylan. Not the next, but just in that category. Matched with that is her amazingly beautiful voice, which is at times frail, intentionally vulnerable, and through that vulnerability comes its true strength. All of these things are things which are carried over from both Dylan and Dylan. I still got COVID. Dylan and Nillan. I sound like a Beastie Boys lyric. Like Dylan and like Neil, that power that can come from that vulnerability, that comes from that sort of what you think might be a weakness in the voice that's actual the strength. But sort of mixing the looseness and the rock and joy of Neil with the true poetic power of Bob into something that's its own, right? That she's not just trying to sound like them. Like at no point did I hear this album and think, oh, this person is trying to be the next Bob Dylan. Because anybody who tries to be the next anything will not be that thing. That's just a rule. So there's my concept. You can leave a comment if you want about this idea of just dropping the next and just saying who the A's are, who are just in that category. Not necessarily in that league, but in that category. What I like about this album, maybe returning to the Neil Young side of it, is how much it changes register and tone. So at times it's folk, at times it's kind of a yodely country thing, and at times it's like raucous. At times there's like a wall of sound. At times there's like barely constructed songs with just one part that just sound like excuses for jams and for playing together. There's one song that just sounds like a demo. But this is great because this album almost suffers from Drake tracklist illness, right? I mean, it's 20 tracks long. It's super long. It's a long, long, long album. It's too long. It is too long. That is a real criticism of it. But because it's able to change its form so often, even though it's too long, it doesn't feel like a slog because you never quite know what's coming around the corner. So, with all that set up, a new Dylan, the time god, beautiful production by the drummer, never know what's going. What's going to be my stamp, my example song from the album? I'm going to start with the first track. I'll include a link to it right up there. Click on it, listen to it, and then come back and watch the rest of my review. Or listen to the rest of the album and don't come back. Their album is much better than this review, which is always true. Change. That's the name of the song. Now already, just with the title, right, we have the sense of the grandeur of Lenker's vision, right? I mean, it's pretty preposterous to call an album song Change. You know, like this is what she's going to describe, but she has the poetic strength to back it up. It starts off with her saying, okay, and that's that feeling of like you're in the studio, that you're in these 4 locations. The sound of a guitar starting, an egg shaker, so much egg shaker on this album, like egg shaker, you know, the little LP egg shakers that are there at the music store next to the cash register. If you've ever been to a music store, you know what I mean. Just buy one next time, just so that you're ready in case Big Thief ever shows up to your house. Very soft and well-played drums. God damn, I love this drummer. You know, I talk a lot about drums because I am a drummer. My son's drum set's over there. I play it sometimes. But like when a drummer is really good and plays really restrained, it just makes me happy. It just, you know, it just gives me this just happiness. Just great, any great musician who can play restrained and well, it's really astounding. The voice just comes in just sweet and slightly weak. And I mean, when I say weak, I mean vulnerable, not bad. And this is the thing. These lyrics, I think, are about as good as lyrics can be. They are profound and they are simple. This is where I like her the best. This is the same thing that Dylan does, right? You generally don't need a thesaurus. You don't need a dictionary to follow Dylan. He doesn't talk about the apotheosis of the necromancers, right? He speaks in fairly simple language, but he's able to turn phrases and combine ideas in a way that you're not expecting. So the whole thing, change is like the water. Okay, fine. Like the skin. Oh, now that's interesting. Change is like skin, because it's like how skin sloughs off and becomes dust, or like how skin like keeps putting wrinkles all around my eyeballs. I don't know. Or change is like a butterfly. That's pretty simple. Or change is like the sky. Well, that's a cool. I mean, the sky does change, but also it doesn't. And then the chorus. Now I call it the chorus. It's actually just the back half of each verse. There isn't a real proper chorus here. So she has like the first half of all these verses start with something like, and then the second half is what I call the chorus, starts with would you. And this is where the time god really makes her appearance, you know. Would you live forever and never die? Remember that lyric. It's going to come back in the final song, like an hour from now. I don't know how long this video is going to take me. Would you love forever, never die, live forever, never die, while everything around you passes? F off, I am the time god. But then the second verse, everything's so well produced. The bass picks up, the drums are slightly louder, and there's like a keyboard that comes in a little bit. The keyboard could have been annoying. I could have been like, God damn it, just enough with the keyboard. But at no point on this album did I say, God damn it, enough with the keyboard. And here, instead of it being change is like, death is like a door that you've never been through before. A simple lyric, simple words. Very profound idea. And then the second chorus with a harmony from Buck Meek on there, powerful and strong. Actually, I can't tell if it's him singing or if it's her again. I don't know. I didn't actually write it down on my notes. Oops. I don't have a script. I have notes. So I forget who does the harmony, if she doubles or if he does it. Whatever it is, it's good. Would you stare at the sun forever and to never set, to learn the secret of the quiet night? That appears to be what the song is about this secret of the quiet night. What exactly was the line again? I had glimpsed into the mind of eternity and found only silence. After a quick, wonderful guitar solo, I've stared into the mind of eternity and seen only silence. Here, the time god Adrianne Lenker sees stillness. So we started off with change is like, and then death is like, and then still, like a stone, like a hill, like home. Home as still. Fascinating concept. As opposed to the change, we have the home. And then she does something that she does throughout the album. She switches from the cosmic to the personal. And here's where I'd say she does it probably even better than the two old farts I've been talking about this whole video. This shift from the cosmic to the personal is brilliant because she starts talking about her lover, this woman who she broke up with, and I guess the last album was about as well, you know, and talking about the jealousy that she feels towards this new lover. And so it becomes clear that the change is like not just change in nature, that death is not just through a door and the eternal, but it's also a change in the relationship. The final words of the album, of the song, would you smile forever and never cry? A fascinating idea, an interesting question. Could be sort of cruel punishment to smile forever and never cry. This whole song ends up becoming a great elegy for the bittersweet. The final chorus has more harmony, tremolo guitar, more active drums, and then I could kiss this drummer. I forgot to write his name down, so I don't even know his name, but I could kiss him for this. He has two fills. So this is the thing about drummers, you know, like you just can't get them to shut up. You know, you got a guitarist and a bass player tuning, and the drummers, you just cannot shut up a drummer. I know because I was a drummer, and I never shut up. I never stopped. Never shut up. So the beauty of this is this whole song, the fill is like hitting one tom once. Donk. Super restrained. But when you know it's there, and if you're a fan of this song, you haven't noticed that yet, that's my gift to you. You're going to listen to the end, to the drummer going absolutely nuts. Dunk. Simplicity and beauty. Awesome. Then the next song becomes super rockin'. It started off folk, now it's rock. Time Escaping. Very aware of the recording process, kind of goofing around with the guitar and saying cool in the beginning. This is sort of announcing the whiplash of this album, these weird, odd noises with the guitar that sound almost like an arpeggiated keyboard, kind of being slapped and played out of tune. It's so different from the first track. It's rocking, it's great. Still, the drummer is wonderful and restrained. The chorus gets ethereal, with her voice going up really high. More cryptic time god lyrics. Time is escaping. And there's a beautiful moment in the middle of this in which she explains to her dog, it's music. So the dog came in barking and she had to explain to the dog, it's music. There's a fair chance you'll hear my dogs barking in this video. So I'll just, you know, it's thoughts. I'll just yell up there, it's thoughts. Wonderful, like progression. Just right off the bat, we've got like folk, and then we've got rock. What's the last thing we need? That's track 3. Country, with the song Spud Infinity. Sounds like a joke title. It is and it isn't. Sorry, it's legitimately difficult for me to speak a lot because of the damn COVID. So I'm going to be taking a little more sips of my coffee and my water than usual. The country mode. So it's the third mode of the album. It starts off with a mouth harp and a fiddle, and like these muted drums, and what's it gonna take? This kind of like yodeling that Buck Meek did a lot on his album. So, you know, like, part of me hates it, part of me loves it. The part of me that hates it is the part of me that finds it to be hipster country douchebaggery. The part of me that loves it is the part that can just say, hey, this sounds good. I think I'm mostly on that other side where it's good. A lot of interesting noises on this song. Again, more time god lyrics, this great messianic perspective that she has. From up there, it looks so small. From way down here, it looks so small. It was at this point that I texted my brother and my nephew and just said, hey, y'all are going to love this album. Like, this is going to be a great album. And my sister-in-law, for that matter. I just got super excited and just sort of told everybody who I thought would like this album. It's that kind of album. What's it going to take to free this celestial body? More cosmic lyrics. I want to feel so happy that I cry. I want to be the shoelace that you tie. I want to live forever till I die. I want to live forever till I die. Wait, didn't she ask in that first song? She did. Would you live forever until you die? I mean, would you live forever and never die? These themes of eternity really are all the way throughout. There's also a little bit of, my hesitation, the sort of upper class, privileged, NPR listening, New York Times reading. I'll just shorten it to NPR, National Public Radio. The kind of bougie NPR-ness where she also sings about eating a knish and garlic bread and food. Being a foodie is very associated with that. Again, you hate what you are, right? I'm very NPR in my sort of daily life. I'm a college professor, for Christ's sakes. I was born with an NPR tote bag in my hand. But still, the whole song is just goofy and deep. And again, I go back to Bob Dylan. His goofiness is not enough appreciated because the goofiness and the depth has to be in there. And how serious can you be in a song like this that has mouth harp all over the place? He even has like a little mouth harp and snare drum solo right there. It sounds like a little march. This fun is important. Stabs of synthesizers are goofy and fun. Next song is called Certainty. Has so much hiss. Like so much. To the point where I don't think I've ever heard a song with this much hiss that's been released. This sounds like it's like a fourth generation XL2, not even XL2S, an XL2 tape that's just been recorded 3 or 4 times over, but it doesn't matter. It's straightforward, folky, country rock, soft drums, clear bass, yodeling harmonies, maybe the best Buck Meek harmonies on here. A great chorus that seems to be about a long-term relationship. We're kind of moving a little bit away from the cosmic, but not entirely, a little away from the eternal, a little away from the time god. But here it's this question about certainty. And that's one of the great questions in a relationship. What is your relationship with certainty? My certainty is wild weaving, for you I am a child believing. And then this idea, like, certainty is wild. Like, that's a great... My certainty is weaving. So that's a lack of certainty, but it's also about the certainty. It's a fascinating idea. An amazing second verse. Maybe I love you is a river so high. Maybe I love you is a river so low. I love you, still don't know. The uncertainty is all over the place. All the way throughout this verse. But there is this hope in the future, in what she imagines, the way she imagines the future, the way she imagines being certain in her love. You lay beside me sleeping on a plane in the future. This woman knows how to write about the intimacy of sleep. I don't know why she's the first that I can think of to talk about this. But she is the goddamn Willie Nelson of sleep. Willie Nelson is like the highest compliment you can give, as far as I'm concerned, for lyric writing about a certain topic. His ability to sort of personify things and work through things and have interesting punchlines that are also very deep and moving and fun and interesting. Like, you lay beside me sleeping on a plane. Like, that's such an amazing image to have about the future. And that's what she wants, and that's what she's uncertain she can have. So in the last solo album, she wants to be sleeping in the car while the other person's driving. Here, the person next to her is asleep. Please excuse the sounds of my house. I have no control. Apparently there's some heating going on upstairs. Here, instead of putting the vulnerability in the person who's driving her, they're both putting their vulnerability in the person who's flying the plane. So that, like, they're both essentially on this plane that neither of them are controlling, which I think is the plane of love, which sounds like a Neil Young song. Plane of love. Anyways, you know, like, they are now, neither of them are in control, and they're both vulnerable in this uncertain certainty. Sort of a side note, I don't know if I predicted this before, but like, people who are afraid of flying because they were driven drunk a lot when they were a kid, quite often, you know, because they feel like that they can't trust the people who are driving them. I wouldn't surprise me if her parents were alcoholics, or if she had been driven drunk at times in her life, because this sort of like need for certainty and ability to trust people reads like somebody who couldn't really trust their parents when they were growing up. But I don't know. I just called her the Willie Nelson of sleep. I don't know. Is that a stupid thing to say? Is that my COVID craziness, or is that kind of cool? You can tell me in the comments. And smash the like bucket and subscribe. Thank you. And you can buy my mug too if you want, but that's less important. Unfortunately, I think the next song is the first miss on the album. Dragon, New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You. It's a little too breathy. I don't like the brush drums. It's ethereal and it's beautiful, but the lyrics are too abstract. She's great, or in my opinion, for me, she's greatest when she's in the middle, when she's poetic and grounded. There's a dragon in the phone line, coughing up a mighty flame with a tongue of silver, calling out my oldest name. It's okay, but it's not quite as good as the rest. There's nice layers with pedal steel and crackling sound effects. At times it sounds like someone dropped a pick in the F-hole of an acoustic guitar and was shaking it around, and that's the percussion. But it's kind of a miss. Fortunately, the next track, Sparrow, is wonderful. Dark, kind of acoustic guitar here with the sharp electric notes every once in a while over it. They use the electric guitar in this song to create a sense of menace, which threatens the warmth of the acoustic guitar. Eventually there's some like dulcimer, I believe, which sort of echoes the themes of bells in the song. And here her voice has a real edge. She has a lot of different modes to her voice. Like, you always know it's her voice, but she has like different levels of sort of like frailty and sharpness. And this is her sharper side. She's telling a story about Adam and Eve. I feel like that's like the third song this year I've reviewed about Adam and Eve. She has someone say, he said, and she repeats it twice. And I think that when you say, and he said, and he said, when you repeat it, we're supposed to question the authority of the person talking, the confidence, the certainty, if you will, of the person talking. And he said that she has a poison inside her. She talks to snakes and they guide her. So I think it's just another traditional song about the bum rap that 51% of humanity got by the guiding doctrine of the Bible. The song has a feel almost like it's in a round, like it's just sort of, it feels like it kind of start over again. A nice instrumental outro with that kind of dulcimer solo. I believe it's a dulcimer, I can't quite tell. And it's pretty cool to have a song that's about Adam and Eve, but it has a lot of bird metaphors. How do we mix together Adam and Eve and birds? I mean, we already got. I mean, how many more metaphors do you need than the Adam and Eve story? Snakes and apples and trees and gardens and nakedness. I mean, there's so much there, but she somehow finds another element. Next song, Little Things, is I'd say another one of the misses on the album. Reminds me a little bit of that terrible song, Life is a Highway. I looked so much like the singer of Life is a Highway. Tom Cochran, I believe was his name. That when I was in high school, when I'd walk down the hallway, people would make fun of me by singing Life is a Highway. So do you know what I did one day? I brought in a harmonica. And when the next person who sang Life is a Highway, I swung around and I started playing the harmonica solo from Life is a Highway. True moments of Professor Sky badassery. This isn't just an excuse to tell that story. That is the feeling that I get from that. There's a kind of like clean feel to the guitars. Maybe it's even a 12-string guitar. Just looks kind of coarse. There's kind of like a glossy effect on this. And I prefer my music muted, not glossy. What's interesting is this is one of the sort of non-songs on the album where it's just like verse and then instrumental and then another verse and instrumental. It's not really other parts. It sounds almost like a mantra. I do like the guitar noodling in the left channel. Kind of the wall of sound is the way I would say here. It's just more and more sound. The next song, Heavy Bend, has another sort of false start. And then I think it might be a harp. In the credits, I think it said a nylon string guitar. Maybe not. But I really like the percussion of the drums here. It's sort of a hip-hop song. That sounds crazy. But if you listen to this song and imagine it, I think you could rap over it. Because there's kind of this, like, the drum beat is very restrained, but it's kind of a heavy hi-hat hit every once in a while. The repetitive nature of this harp or this guitar. The voice is very fragile. She's in a very fragile mode. Again, not much of a song, more of a ditty. Very sort of obscure lyrics here. Too obscure for my taste. Don't want to pretend, formless secret, heavy bend. I don't really get it. Coming up next is my favorite Cannibal Corpse song, Flower of Blood. Okay, it's actually just another Big Thief song. Now this is interesting. It's got like funky drums, which sound like they're in the other room, but a tambourine that sounds like it's right in front of the microphone. It's kind of a jam song. That's the other element of this album, is that when you have a bunch of people who just enjoy playing music together, it inevitably gets jammy. It's kind of guitar-led, more wall of sound. And here, if I had to pin this down to a genre, I would have called the last song, Heavy Bend, a hip-hop song. I'm going to call this one Dream Pop. Especially the way she sings it. It has that sort of droning feel and that kind of ethereal, dreamlike sense. There's a really cool guitar solo played mostly on harmonics, which are like the very raucous, very loud, very percussive. Again, this is in that sort of the whiplashing between styles is part of the reason why I associate it so much with Neil Young as well. Not just Buck Meek's guitar playing, which has a lot of the power and simplicity and taste of Neil Young's guitar solos, but also just these styles from one to another. Blurred View is a dance hall song. Okay, now I'm going too far. It's not a dance hall song, but it's a dance hall beat. Doom, doom, ka. But it's distorted, it's underwater, there's all these weird sounds, it sounds kind of experimental, maybe even a little trip-hoppy, almost like Portishead at points. Again, all these changes in styles are necessary because it's such a long album and it's so dense. And Adrianne Lenker is giving you so much to think about lyrically, like personally and cosmically, that it's important that we have these sort of less heavy songs. Odd lyrics which really match the weird sounds in the song. I am the new disease, the light breeze, the yellow stars going through the white trees. I pine for you, shine for you, pine for you. The whole thing sort of has that feeling, and I've been saying this a lot lately, but I think there's like a Twin Peaks feeling that music can have. By that I mean it can sort of have the dreamy quality of Angelo Badalamenti's music, which just does a little bit, but also just the thematics of like trees and bizarre things happening. It has sort of a Twin Peaks feel to it. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm just making way too many pop culture references. I'm like a Family Guy episode over here, but I can't help it. I've just been sitting on my goddamn air mattress for the last week, just sort of too tired to think, but too awake to sleep. But at least I'm not in the hospital, so I'm not complaining. Then we get to basically flip over the album to part 2, with the song Red Moon, the 11th track, 11th out of 20. Back to clean acoustic guitar and a fiddle. Some great fiddles on the back half of the album here. It's a song about the red moon. Again, not quite a real song. It's like verse, interstitial, instrumental, verse. What I like is in these interludes, it reminds me, another old dude band, reminds me a fair amount of the Grateful Dead in here, especially the bass work in this. It reminds me of like a good Grateful Dead live jam. Sometimes people ask me, because I'm a Deadhead, but I don't do drugs, and I don't identify as a Deadhead, but I've listened to so much Dead music. What to listen to? The answer is February 15th. March 15th, 1973. The show in Wisconsin. That's the show. It's on YouTube. You want to know what's great about the Grateful Dead? Listen to that show. But a little bit of that driving, interesting, noodly bass work here, Windmills turn and turn eternally. More Time God lyrics. Super folksy at the end of the second verse, where she talks about, that's my grandma. It's right on the line. If I were being uncharitable, or if I caught this album in a bad mood, I would hear her saying, that's my grandma, and I would be pissed. But this album has won me over. I'm full of goodwill and good cheer. So when I hear her say, that's my grandma, I go, that's cute. Sort of vignettes of country living and sort of great jam rock all the way through. Dried Roses is the next track. Flowers of Blood, Dried Roses. She has a sort of these images that she goes back to. The sleeping images, the images of time, and the images of flowers. Just acoustic guitar and voice, necessarily bare to start, but a cool kind of fiddle kicks in, and it's a waltz. It's a nice, lazy waltz with some good lyrics. Goodness her, goodness me, goodness, eternity, out you go, in you be, Dried Roses. That's just great. Goodness her, goodness me, goodness, eternity, out you go, in you be, Dried Roses. Roses have often been used, centuries and centuries, as metaphors for the briefness of life. More often, the briefness of beauty as a method to seduce young women, by poets like Ronsard in France. But still, it is a theme of life and death as well. So Dried Roses being already dead, out you go, in you be, goodness, eternity. This is, again, that time God perspective that she has. In a way, this song is like you know how sometimes you listen to music and then you're like, hey, who the hell wrote this song? This is great. And then you look in the credits and in the parentheses, it just says trad, meaning traditional. Like, but nobody wrote this? But I'm a consumer and I want to know who's the producer? Who created this content? Who created the content of this song for me? This has that feeling where, like, you could think this is like a traditional song, except it uses words like microwave, which doesn't quite work there. Excellent fiddle usage, and not annoying fiddle usage. Next song is No Reason, which has like a jangly electric guitar. So many different things happening on this album. A second electric guitar joins, the descending notes. More egg shakers. Again, you're there at House of Guitars in Rochester, greatest music store in the world, and you're at the cash register. Right next to the cash register is the egg shakers and a little plastic thing. You got to buy it. But put in the comments how many egg shakers do you own? Even if it's 0. Say 0 egg shakers. Just let me know. It's a great instrument. This time I'd say the delivery the only time I would say the delivery actually reminds me of Bob Dylan, not just the sort of spiritual approach is on this song. More frail than usual voice, but just these lyrics, like the end of the chorus into the beginning of the second verse. Come together for a moment, look around and dissolve, like a feeling, like a flash, like a falling eyelash on your sweater, threading future through the past. These little personal details of an eyelash falling on your sweater, threading future through the past. Which leads into the verse, city of salt bone and bell tower, country of ice rain and wildflower. Just great. It's just great. It's got that poetic power with the personal touch. It's great. There's a flute solo on here. Bacon and eggs flute solo. Apparently, according to Lyric Genius, they were walking around in Colorado and saw someone playing a flute on a lookout tower and called him down to play music. That sounds like, what the hell is that story? What kind of Terry Gross nightmare is that story? It doesn't matter. It's a great flute. It's a great flute solo. It works. But just like, we were walking like a lookout tower. A lookout for what? What is this, F Troop? Like, how is there a lookout tower, and how is some magical flute player playing up there? Was this Mr. Tumnus? I don't know. But it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it got the flute on the album, and it was quite good. If you're paying attention, that's like my 40th pop culture reference so far. Wake Me Up to Drive, another whiplash. So we were just in flute country, and now we had this extreme Casio drum sequence, this warbled guitar, and accordion. Accordion's out of nowhere. It feels like friends goofing around. It feels like a demo. It feels like a B-side. It feels like an outro, like an outtake, but it's great. I'm happy that it's here. It has kind of a Western theme with like gambling and being on a horse. Wake Me Up to Drive. More of this theme of sleeping and being driven and vulnerability. Wake me up to drive, even if I'm tired, I don't want to miss a ride. Interesting there. It doesn't quite fit the thematics as much as I'd like it to when I saw the title. But still, it's nice and it leads into Promise is a Pendulum. I keep saying this. This is the best lyrics on the album. How many best lyrics on the album are there going to be? Like, it's really special. Like, whatever's happening with Adrianne Lenker is like really special. And I don't even know their other 2 albums. I don't. 3? I don't know how many they have. I only know the Buck Meek album, songs, and this. And I can already tell you, she's doing something special. I could never build the ether or the grass overgrown. I could never build the river with a mouth full of foam. I could never build the winter with her cold tears of glitter. I've been listening to the red oak and the acorn she cries. I've been listening to the white birch and the paper she dries. I've been listening to the frog's joke, listening to the fire smoke. An interesting, like frog's joke. That's unexpected, So while she's talking about things that are maybe expected, but the red oak or the acorn she cries, and the white birch and the paper she dries, the correlation between the tree becoming paper and transformation and death and murder and fire, smoke. This is, how do you pull off super environmental, super nature lyrics? It's hard, but she does it. She sounds super rough in the chorus. You can hear her inhale. There's more development of this nature theme, because then it becomes a lot more about this personal side. She does that trick about not being able to say I love you or to promise something. And then the last verse, after singing all about the things that she could never build in nature, this time God perspective of the beauty and eternal transformations of everything all around us, I could never make a freckle or the warm breath you sigh. So all of a sudden she's singing about her lover or her ex-lover. And it becomes personal. And it becomes clear that her appreciation of beauty and of nature and of eternity is actually a sort of reflection of her appreciation of this love which she is not certain. This love in which she promises to it, but that promise is a pendulum, meaning it's not straightforward. It isn't always promised. Listening to the echoes of why and because, listening to the echo telling me to let go. Real goosebumps right there. I'm not joking. I only do that when I get real goosebumps. I got them for real. It's also a little cold in my basement. It's snowing like a banshee out there, but still. Listening to the echo telling me to let go. All of this beautiful imagery and all these metaphors are all leading up to letting go. She has to let go of this woman that she loves so much. 12,000 lines, kind of folk pop with the simple, agreeable folk production, maybe a bit too NPR, a bit too bougie, a direct reference to doing a crossword and to drinking tea into streets in New York. Listen, if you're the kind of person who on a Sunday likes to sit down and drink tea and do the New York Times crossword and go get some good food somewhere in Manhattan, God bless you. You've won life. You have a very fortunate life. It's a little bit hard hearing lyrics written for those people because they already have everything. But again, I'm hating what I see in myself. I don't do the crossword puzzle, but I could. I was born with an NPR tote bag in my hand. A gorgeous chorus here, harmony. This time I wrote down harmony with Buck. You see? Sometimes I like to show my notes so you can see. Harmony with Buck. There you go. Some nights barely breathing at all, waiting for my woman to call. I love that line. The simplicity, that's another thing. Underrated thing about Bob Dylan's best work is he can break free of poetic lines and just have ridiculously simple love songs. Like some nights, barely breathing at all, waiting for my woman to call. Just waiting for a phone call. It's like one of the most trite images in all of music. This is some of Buck's best guitar work here on this song, and I like it, even though it's a little NPR. Next song, Simulation Swarm, according to Lyric Genius, is all about her misgivings in modern life, about her ex-lover, about her brother who she's never met, about a recent hospital stay, about growing up in a separatist cult. I didn't get that from the lyrics, but it's a great song. Very straightforward drums and good guitar. More bass. I wish there was more bass on the album in general. I don't know what he did to piss off the producer. Or she did. I don't know who the bass player is. But it's all in the left channel, which sounds quite nice. Just verse after verse. It's another one of these sort of non-songs. I mean, there is a chorus that repeats, but there's a lot of verses. The chorus is basically the same thing, just slightly different. She does a voice crack thing just once here, and I'm happy she only does it once on the album because I don't like it. A very cool and choppy guitar solo. This is going to sound crazy, but it sounds to me like an organically played Daft Punk solo. You know how Daft Punk will have breakdowns where things sound all chopped up and weird, yet somehow it all comes together? That's how this guitar solo sounds, which is one of the coolest descriptions I've ever given to anything. So you should really listen to the guitar solo in Simulation Swarm. Love, Love, Love starts in medias res, right in the middle. In the middle, the whole album's been filled with people just getting ready to sing and saying, "Okay, be quiet, dogs. Let's start recording." And here we have a song that starts halfway through. Very loose, very alive song. This is the point where the album's just too long. Because I love this song, but I was done listening to the album at this point. I don't know what to say about that. Because this is one of my favorite songs on the album. This is probably my third favorite song on the album. But I didn't want to hear it. I was just kind of done. But a really great, far out, aggravating guitar solo that's also very good. Simpleness and directness of these lyrics. There's a bottle out in the sea with a message inside from me saying, "Release my love." Whatever it is that this person has been going through, she wants to be free of this love that's been oppressing her and also inspiring her. In a way, the way these lyrics are written, it reminds me of another Dylan, Nick Cave. I think if we can talk about people being a Dylans, I don't think there's a lot of Dylans out there, but I think Nick Cave is definitely one of them. And this songwriting reminds me a little bit of that. I love her singing and screaming at the end, and then it fades out. So it's the only song that doesn't have a definitive end or beginning. It has neither. It starts in the middle and ends in the middle. The only place, by contrast, is just a guitar and voice. Simple, good folk music. You hear her foot tapping instead of the drums, restraint of this producer. The verse is a little more aggressively phrased. There's a lot happening in the way she's singing. She slightly raises with each line. The only place that matters is by your side. Apparently, she has not been freed of that love. My Lord, I'm going to eat 10 throat drops after this video. I better see some like buckets just absolutely demolished after this video. Blue Lightning is the closer, and it's a nice closer. I mean, you hear Buck start off saying a 1 and a 2, kind of a country blues song, some yodeling, kind of a mixture of all the styles at once. She says on Lyric Genius that it's about childhood, but it just feels like just a sweet love song. I want to feel so happy that I cry. I want to be the shoelace that you tie. I want to live forever till I die. That's the third time the Time Lord has said this. Would you live forever, never die is in the first song, and here she says, I want to live forever till I die. She's answered the question for us. The question was the following: would you live forever and never die? The answer is no. She wants to live forever until she dies, which is also my plan. That's the best plan you could possibly have. Live forever until you die. That is to say, enjoy life, appreciate life, have a kind of cosmic detachment and understanding of your insignificance, while simultaneously having an understanding of your grandeur and of the great things you can do with your art, with your love, with your family, with the people you're close to, with your time. You have infinite time while you are alive because you don't know when it's over. But it's also very finite and doesn't last very much time at all. I told you she's the Time Lord, right? And this is her instruction. Live forever until you die. A cool outro with them saying at the end, that was good, what should we do now? Indicating this sort of ending and restarting that is part of this whole time theme. So there's my review. My long, long, long review. That is not very long at all. I want to thank my Patreons who help me to buy music. I take the money they give me and I buy music. I have so many now. So thank you. If you want me to try to figure out how to fit your name onto these pieces of paper every weekend, you just go to patreon.com/Professor Sky. I also have a lot of behind the scenes footage and personal thoughts, and I respond to messages there a fair amount. So thank you to all those people. And I sure hope I feel better because I would like to teach. But I am not exposing myself to the world till that T line goes away. And neither should you. Okay, until next time, there's the camera.